Alrighty, a great flurry of people so early in the morning. So good morning, everyone. Wanted to welcome you to this session. This morning, what we're going to be going through is something that's actually resonated very well with our customers. And what we're going to talk about today is the ability to take a bright idea and turn it into automation champagne in 4 easy steps. Now, I think today more than ever, automation is all about our people and helping our people do more with less. And really, when we look at different automation ideas across companies, the people that have these ideas are actually the people themselves that work inside the business that are doing these tedious, mundane, repetitive tasks on a day-to-day basis. So what we've realized is that some of these great, bright ideas for automations actually sit with these people, and we need to make it really easy and really simple to take those ideas and actually turn them into automation champagne. Now, you're going to hear me talk a lot about these things called bright ideas. And when I say bright idea, all I'm referring to is actually an idea for an automation. Now, there's different ways we can actually get ideas for different automations across our companies. And I'm going to show you a few of those ways today. And once we have these bright ideas, really what we want to then go and do is we'd like to go and turn them into automation champagne. Now, this automation champagne is a bit of a fun concept created by us here at rapidMATION. But really, when I say we're going to turn it into automation champagne, what I mean by that is we're going to take this idea and we're going to get it live, we're going to get it up and running, and we're going to go make sure that the business realizes some benefit from automating this specific idea. And that's what we call from bright idea to automation champagne. All right, so if we get started, the first step that we need to do is we need to go and discover different automation opportunities across our business. And in order to do this, there's a few different ways that we can discover these automation opportunities. Now, the first way, and probably the easiest way to do this, is to do something called idea mining. And what idea mining actually is, it's all about crowdsourcing ideas from our employees. And really what that means is that we go and ask the users in our business what ideas they have for automations, what tedious, mundane, repetitive tasks they may do. And really once we ask them about those ideas, then we need a central area to be able to log those ideas so that we can actually see which ideas are good ones to go through and actually automate. So what I'm going to introduce you today is something called UiPath Automation Hub. It's an amazing tool that allows us to be able to capture these ideas, crowdsource them from our users, and then be able to manage our idea pipeline. But this is not the only way we can actually get these ideas. Another thing that's resonating really well with our customers at the moment is something called task mining. And this is something new from the UiPath team. And really what this is this is a little software agent that sits on your machine and it watches different applications that you may interact with. Now, it sounds a bit big brotherish, but basically what you do is you set up this software agent and you tell it which applications you would like it to watch. So as an example, that could be SAP or Oracle or maybe a specific web-based system. And when it is watching your interactions with that system, it makes itself very well known that it is recording you, and you can, of course, stop that at any time. Now, the advantage of this is if you do it across 5 or 10 users and you run it for 5 or 10 days, very quickly we can get an idea of exactly the ways different people are running the process. And I must iterate that this is actually by following the clicks that someone does on the user interface of a specific application. So task mining sits there, watches your clicks in user interfaces, and then allows us to go through and generate some ideas for automation. Now, on the other side of that, there's also something around called process mining. Now, what process mining is and where that differs is that actually looks at the system logs of any application that we interact with. So you point this process mining tool at some of those system log data, so when people were doing different things, and it starts to graph out different ideas of how different people are using the system and where there may be potential ideas for automations. So really, those are the 3 different ways that you can actually go through and find these bright ideas. But today where we're going to focus is we're very much going to focus on this idea mining concept. And we're going to start off in the world of this tool called Automation Hub. Using this with many of our customers, this is part of our default delivery methodology. This tool has amazing impacts and the ability to capture ideas from across our business. So to kind of go through this today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a very simple example for you to walk you through it. And we've dealt in the past 2 weeks with many customers who use Excel pervasively across the business, like many businesses do. But they're spending a lot of time doing swivel chair between some data in Excel and then going to put it in some system. So for today's example, I'm just going to use an Excel spreadsheet. You can see this Excel spreadsheet has some contact details. And in my example, what I said, it's event contacts. So I don't know, people that might have attended events, they're all fictitious companies, names and numbers. So no issue there. And what we need to do is there was a user in our organization that was taking this Excel spreadsheet. What they then needed to do is go and actually copy this data into some sort of web-based system. I've just used a fun website called RPA Challenge for the sake of today's demos. But really what we need to do is instead of a human user going through and copying and pasting that data across and swivel chairing between different systems, what this user decided to do was log an idea for this specific challenge and see if they could get it automated. So the first thing I'm going to show you is something called Automation Hub. And again, this is where we can actually log and manage our idea pipeline. Now, it's a very simple submission process for an end user to go and actually capture an idea for an automation. The great thing about it as well, there's a whole gamification model around it. And what I mean by that is people inside organizations, it's quite funny when you challenge them and there's a leaderboard to see who's logging ideas and what ideas are coming through. People quite like that and they like the gamification aspect. So inside Automation Hub, there's this gamification aspect built into it. The great thing for us is maybe people that sit in what we call the COE or Center of Excellence, or maybe the people that are reviewing these automation ideas. This gives us a central kind of pipeline that we can look at and we can manage that idea from ideation through to the production and through to actually getting that process live. So it's kind of like the command center for all of our different automations. What we can then do is, once these ideas for automations come through, what we can do is we can use some statistics to analyze them and see which of these ideas are really the bright ideas. So which ideas are going to give us the biggest return on investments. And there's a great kind of algorithm that's built into this product that allows us to do it. And finally, what we can do inside this product is we can visualize all the projected return on investment across any of these automation ideas. It's a really great tool for reporting up, for going through and getting, support from the business to go through and do some of these automations. So enough talking about it, let's go look and see what actually happens and what the user experience looks like. So the first thing that happens is an employee will come in and they'll log into this web-based dashboard. So it's all in the cloud. And you'll see at the top right-hand side, they'll click on Submit Idea. There's two types of ideas they can submit, but generally an employee will just submit the employee-driven idea. And what this does is this starts off a 9-question wizard. So the first thing this employee can do is they can learn more a bit about process automation and what that might be. But if they've got an idea for an automation, they click on the Let's Get Started button. And from the Let's Get Started button, the first thing that this wizard asks us is to provide a short description of the task or process that they'd like to propose for automation. So in my example, all I said there is upload event contacts from Microsoft Excel to a web-based system. And I clicked on Next in the bottom right-hand side of the screen. The next thing it asked me for is to name this task or process. And again, I just simply popped in there automation for uploading event context and clicked on next. On to question 3, it asked me to kind of categorize this automation idea in a specific hierarchy. Again, this is fully customizable, so you can customize this to your exact business. But firstly, you're going to select an automation area. So that might be sales and marketing, HR, IT, or the like. Then you might have a category underneath that, and then a subcategory. So in my example, I just said it's sales and marketing. It's about understanding our markets and customers, and it's allowing us to evaluate and prioritize market opportunities because it's all around event things, and I click next. The next few questions are going to ask me about the different data that this process actually uses. So it's firstly going to ask me how rule-based is your task. And again, because I'm copying from Excel, which is very structured, to a web form that is again very structured, I've selected very rule-based. The next question asks me, well, how would you describe the input data for your task or process? And again, this is very much digital because it's all based inside Excel. Next question asks me, how would you describe the structure of your input data? Once again, very much structured because it's based inside Excel. The next question is going to say to me, are you aware of any expected changes to the way you currently perform this activity or process in the following 6 months? So in my scenario, probably very minor changes expected. We may add a field or two on each side, but there would be minor changes expected. And then what it's going to ask me to do, it's going to ask me to upload any documentation regarding this process or activity. So there's different things that I can upload there: detailed work instructions, standard operating procedures, input or output files, or I can even mark that there is no documentation. In my specific scenario, all I had was that Excel input file. So I clicked on the input file, and what I did is I uploaded that document and I selected add file. And what that did is that added that piece of documentation to my automation idea. Once I click next, it asked me to indicate who the owner of this specific process is. So I entered my email address. You could obviously select different users from your organization in here, but in this scenario, this was my specific process. So I selected myself. So very simple 9 questions. Once I click next, I have the ability to review or update or change any of the details that I've entered. But once I go through, I can actually click on submit, and immediately I get some feedback or an automation score on the specific idea that I've submitted. So here you can see firstly, I mean, at a first glance, it looks like an ideal candidate for automation because it's given me back an automation score of 84%. This piece of software used a number of different algorithms in the background to take the inputs that I've given it and calculate these specific scores. So what it's told me here, it's an overall automation score of 84%. The suitability is 100%. And this is because the data is very structured and it's really looking good and lends itself very nicely to robotic process automation. You'll notice my readiness is only at 60%. And the reason why it's at 60% is because I have only one piece of documentation that I can provide it. Of course, if we go through and add more documentation, this is going to be even more of a home run for robotic process automation. So once my employees actually submitted this idea, they've got some immediate feedback, they're feeling pretty good about themselves, and there's starts to become this whole gamification aspect behind it. So here you can see just a very simple leaderboard. This is just our demo environment, so there's not too many ideas in here. Fortunately, it looks like I'm top of the pops there and I'm leading the leaderboard, which is really good, but I get different badges and achievements and different things as we go through this process. A little bit of fun that we add to this process is once an employee submits one of these ideas, we say that we take them from bright idea to automation champagne. So what we do is we actually send them out one of these bright idea light bulbs. It's pretty fun, just part of our standard delivery methodology. People love having these on their desk, giving them to their kids, or even just having some Smarties with a coffee break, right? So these M&M light bulbs have been a big hit and just part of our bright idea process. Okay, so that's step 1. That's about actually being able to go and gather these ideas. So the next step is then being able to see which idea brings you and your company the highest return on investment. So how do we go about doing that? Well, the first thing is once all of these ideas are logged, there's something called the automation pipeline. And the automation pipeline is a central area where we can review any of these ideas that have come in to our company. Now you can see the statuses vary across these different ideas, and there's been some idea and automation scores. And this allows me one central area to manage all of these ideas. Now, the great thing is when these ideas come in, there's a whole process that they follow. So the first part of an idea, it gets sent to that specific user's direct reporting manager to either approve or decline that idea, mark it as a duplicate idea, and then it follows kind of an assessment process through to qualification, then down into the implementation phase. So there's a whole workflow that's built into this tool that manages that idea for you. Now, if you head over to Automation Hub, if you head to the FAQ documentation, there's some really great doco on exactly what each of these process items are, or kind of what happens at each stage of the process. There's some really good documentation there for you to go review and have a look at. Now, really the thing we need to figure out though is there could be lots of ideas that have been logged into this central portal, but which of these ideas are actually the bright ideas? And what I mean by that is which of those ideas are going to lead to the biggest return on investment, and which one of those do we actually want to go through and automate? So in order to do that, we come through here and we will have a look at these different kind of automation ideas. And for one of these automation ideas, what we can actually go through and do is we can go through and we can go and do a bit of a ROI estimate on it. And let me show you what this actually looks like. So we'll come in here and I'm just going to take you through this. Looks like that doesn't want to play for me. So what I'll do is I'll just show you what that looks like. Apologies, not sure why that doesn't want to play on the slide, but always good to have a backup of this. And let's go through and look at it here. Okay, so what this is going to look like is I come into this specific automation hub, and in the automation hub, what I do is I browse to the different automations that might be there, and I come into my automation pipeline. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on the right-hand side of this automation pipeline, and I'm going to go through and view this automation profile. So the first thing that I can actually do is you can see it's going to ask me as one of these Center of Excellence users to review this idea and add some additional detail to the idea that the user has submitted. So it's going to go through and it's going to ask me about, well, why do we actually want to automate this process? So in this case, it's about productivity. There's going to be minor changes expected, and the application changes in the next 6 months are probably going to be minor. What I can do is I can start to create some employee profile of who is currently performing these tasks, how often they work, how many days in a year they actually work, and currently what the average salary for a person that might be performing this task may be. And all of these different statistics are feeding into that ROI model to figure out how much I might be able to save by automating this specific process. You'll see as I go through here and I fill in some of the process volumetry, what I can do is it's automatically feeding back to me and showing me, well, what is my total process saving and how many hours a year can I save? Are there rework loops and the like? And it goes through and it gives me this instantaneous feedback. And it's actually calculating down the bottom how many full-time employees or FTEs are required for this. So it's really a great way to go through and put all of these details in place for this specific idea. Now, it actually takes really quick. So if you're sitting with a business user, you can very quickly go through and add all these details. And what the outputs and the outcome of adding those details actually is I come back and I get a kind of a automation goal or a productivity matrix that tells me how many hours I might be able to save by automating this specific process. So here you can see with a very simple process, I can save the company 105 hours a year by automating that very simple Excel to web-based system. Now, you can imagine that's a super simple process, right? But with some of the more intense processes that we often implement and we have in our companies, those ROI metrics spike up and there's lots of great savings of costs and time that we can save by implementing RPA. You can go through and you can review a number of different things across your whole automation pipeline. So across the whole pipeline, how many dollars worth of potential savings we might have. And there's heaps of different reports that we can actually slice and dice to view what's happening across our automation pipeline. So the next part that we move on to then is once we have these ideas, we've figured out that it's a bright idea, that we have something that we want to automate. How do we go easily capture the requirements for this automation? And generally, this has actually been a very hard process because we need to send a business analyst on site, or we need to go through and perform a whole heap of documentation. And really to be able to take this bright idea and actually turn it into automation champagne, we absolutely need to have the requirements of exactly what this automation might need to do. And only once we have those requirements can we then go through and move that on to the automation champagne phase. So let's go have a quick look at a tool that allows us to do this very, very quickly and easily. Now, the tool we use is something called UiPath Task Capture, and this allows us to document a workflow with ease. I often tell people that this is actually allowing you to take a selfie of your work, right? So it's actually easily allows you to capture your process and what you're doing. And you can actually document this process just by performing that task and what you would actually do on a day-to-day basis. Now, once you've actually documented that task, what we can do is we can take that output and we can render that in something called a PDD document, which is just a fancy name for a requirements document or a process description document. And in that kind of documentation, you can mark it up with images, notes, change text. And once you've actually done that, we can actually export that into that specific requirements document that we need to then go and actually build this automation out for you. Super cool tool and really, really easy to go and use. So let's go have a look at what that actually might look like. So what we'll do here, and I'll just see if this will play. Strangely enough, it won't. So what we'll do is we'll just come across here. And what we're going to show you is me opening up this task capture tool and capturing the requirements for that specific process. So task capture is a tool similar to Microsoft Word. So it's a thick client application that runs on your desktop. Here, as soon as it opens up, I can say I would like to capture the process. And what you'll see is at the top right-hand side of my specific screen, you will notice that there's a little window that's waiting for me to click and do certain steps. So here I'm going to open up that Excel spreadsheet on one side. I'm going to copy the first name. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and paste that into where I need it to fit into in that web-based application. So you'll see I'll just go through there. I'll come through and all I'm doing is I'm performing this work as I would normally do it. And at the top, you'll see that that little window is going through and it's capturing the different steps that I'm doing. At any stage, I can go through and I can actually pause the capture and I can stop it. But really what this is allowing me to do is just perform that piece of work as I would. And in the background, you'll see what's actually happening and what this allows me to do. So once I've finished capturing that specific task, I click on the stop button. And what you'll see is this will take me back into the UiPath Task Capture Studio. And the first thing that it's done, it's actually gone through and created me a workflow diagram of all of the tasks that I performed going through that simple task, right? So if I click on one of these icons, you'll see on the right, it's actually created me screen grabs of everything that I was doing. It's created me little kind of marks of where I clicked and what part of the screens I actually clicked on. And it's gone through, and if I open up one of these specific items, you can see that I can go through and I can see the image. I can go through and browse and see which date has actually been entered. And what I can do is you can see it's even put in kind of different controls that I've done. So in that scenario, I put in Control V. I can go through and add step names or descriptions just to make this more verbose and describe some more details inside there. And what I can even do is if there's things like sensitive data, I can go use some of the blurring tools to kind of blur those out. Or I can mark things up with kind of just numbers to say, I follow step 1, 2, and then 3. Or I can even go and add things like text into these images and screen grabs that just make it a whole lot easier for who's ever going to read this document and implement this workflow to see exactly what was happening there. Now, if you think the massive time savings that we actually get, because no one's had to sit and go and create rafts of documentation, all we've done is we've asked this user just to go through and run this tool in the background. And once they've run this tool, what we're going to do is we're going to ask them to export this document. So we're going to give this document a name and we're going to call it the UiPath Task Capture Demo. And what we'll do is we'll click on next. We'll select a certain template. So the great thing about this is we can customize these to look exactly and be branded in your specific company's documentation style. And once we go through and we click export, what this is going to do, it's going and generating me the full requirements document for this specific process. Super, super simple, super easy, removes the need for lots of business analyst time to go and review kind of what users are doing. And really, it just captures those requirements by sitting and watching exactly what they do. So if I come here and I open up the output of this specific tool, what this is going to do, it's going to show me the PDD document. Just a reminder, PDD stands for Process Definition Document, and it's just the format that UiPath recommend to capture requirements for processes in. So there's some cool stats that I get straight away. Firstly, I can see in that simple process, it took me 44.2 seconds. It gives me my whole kind of walkthrough and my overview. This is very cool because it tells me how many processes, windows, steps, mouse clicks, key presses, all of those types of things that I did and how that compares across the different applications so I can see where that user is spending the most time. And here you can see all of the screen grabs have been entered into this document. It's given me kind of clicks exactly where that user has clicked. So for me as an automation guru, I can use this document to very quickly go and build out this automation. Even in that case where I went through and I marked up the process, we can see all of those fields inside there, which is really, really nice. Okay, so that's a great way to be able to go and actually capture those requirements and get them done really, really easily. So the next part then is to actually say, well, how do I go through? And now that I have those bright ideas, I know which ones are the best ones to do, and I've been able to capture the requirements. How do I go through and get started in a simple and low risk way? Well, the first thing is the good news is you're not going to be the first company to go and do it. If you had to work with us at rapidMATION, we call that process from bright idea to automation champagne. And what we do is we have a tried, tested, and proven delivery methodology that we take you through to get to that end goal of getting that process up and running. Now, we don't have enough time to spend through this rapidMATION delivery methodology, but know that it's tried, tested, and proven, and many customers have followed this pattern to get to a successful outcome. So the next thing is, what does a successful outcome look like? And I just wanted to show you kind of the outputs of this process and what actually happens in the end, right? So once we've taken that through from bright idea to automation champagne, here I'm just going to show you what this automation looks like when we actually go through and run it. So what you're seeing on screen is UiPath assistance, and I'm running an attended bot in this scenario. When I clicked go, it actually opened up that Excel spreadsheet, and this is my little attended bot and my digital worker that's going through and doing all of this work for me. There's none of my human involvement. The great thing that you'll see here is this is kind of a fun one, because as soon as I click submit, what happens is the fields on this web-based application move around. And that's just a great way to show that UiPath is really intelligent, and it doesn't kind of relate to a specific area on a screen where you need to go in and click on. Really what this does, it's intelligent enough to figure out if those fields have moved around. So it's just looping through that spreadsheet. It's doing at light speed, going through and taking care of all of that tedious, mundane, repetitive work for me. At the end, when it's finished, it's gone through and it's actually captured all of those details for me. And that's, in this very simple scenario, would just show you kind of the outcome that we would get you to. Now, once we get you to that great outcome, of course, to pair with those bright idea light bulbs, what we actually like doing is sending out bottles of automation champagne. And again, it's just a fun way for us to have some fun with some of these things. It's my favorite time of the week to send out automation champagne to all the customers whose bots we have got live. And it's kind of fun. We often get photos back from our customers to show us enjoying and celebrating their success and getting these automations up and running. All right, so if you did want to get started today with some of these tools, the great news is for UiPath Automation Hub and UiPath Task Capture, I can actually get you a 60-day free trial for those tools. We do it as part of our standard delivery methodology. I encourage all of our customers to do it. Those tools are absolutely awesome to help you on your intelligent automation journey. So definitely recommend that you do that. And once you have some of those ideas, one of the packs that's resonated really well with our customers is something that we call the rapidMATION Proof of Value Pack. And really what this is, it's a 10-day consulting services engagement from us. It's not talking about what we're going to do, but it's actually the doing part, so getting something up and running for you. And if you're new to automation or robotic process automation, sometimes you might be a little bit hesitant for some or other reason. This allows you to get something up and running that can provide value without having the need to actually commit to some of that software. Of course, I share all the software costs with you ahead of time, and that's part of our relationship, but this is just a low risk and easy way to get started on your intelligent automation journey. Lots of customers find extreme value in being able to work on that real world scenario and prove it out before committing to any of the software purchase. All right, so just a quick poll, just to end things off before we finish off today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch a poll on the screen now. And what that poll is going to say to you, it's going to say, are there any next steps that you would like to take? So perhaps some of you out there would like to get set up on UiPath Automation Hub and Task Capture. Perhaps some people would like to go through and find out more about the rapidMATION Proof of Value Pack, or alternatively, maybe it was just a great education session for you and that you're all good for the moment. So I'll just give you a few seconds. I see lots of information coming in there. It's great to see some people are really excited to get started on Automation Hub and Task Capture. Lots of people keen to get started on a proof of value pack as well, which is good. And yeah, great people saying thanks for a great session and that they're all good for the moment. So I'll give it a few more seconds just for people to kind of finish there. Just while we're waiting for the rest of the feedback to come in, if there are any questions, we'll open it up for questions very soon. Please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A manager down the bottom of the screen, and I will go through and I will answer some of those questions very shortly. Okay, last few responses coming in now, so maybe another 5 seconds. All right. And let's see, our last few coming in. Some great feedback there. Thank you very much. So I'm going to close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent. Thanks for your great feedback there. All right. So what I'll do is we'll reach out to some of the people that would like to go through and get started on different things. But let me open it up for questions. I'm just going to open up the question panel. And the first question I have here is, could you amend a specific captcha without changing the whole process? And that's a question from Jazeel. Jazeel, great question. So if a user has gone through and actually maybe documented the process and now you want to go back and change one step in that process, yes, you absolutely can do that. You can go back through and then restart the capture tool at any part of the process. Another very commonly asked question, I see another one here in the kind of the user manager or the question manager, is if it has different branching logic. So perhaps an if then else kind of scenario, how do you use that or capture that in the document? Again, that tool makes that really easy. You just click a certain step, you click the record button and then kind of record the alternative path. So both of those can be done fairly easily using the tool. All right, and some more questions here. One from Stephen. Morning, Stephen. So what are the licensing requirements to access Automation Hub beyond the 60-day trial? Very good question. UiPath have changed some of the ways they license that, but at this stage, what they do is they give you unlimited users, which means you can license your whole organization on being able to submit and validate these different ideas. So unlimited users on that and unlimited users for that UiPath task capture tool. And the cost of that on an annual basis is $9,000 per year for unlimited users. So definitely worthwhile. I know people use that task capture tool for requirements beyond just RPA, right? People love that tool. So some great value can be gained by some of those things. All right, some other questions in here. Maybe time for another one or two. Next one here is, can you tell us some of the success stories of Automation Hub? Yeah, so we work with a lot of different customers. As I said, it's part of our standard delivery methodology. One of our specific customers, a legal customer, they have pushed this out to their whole user base. Lots of ideas get generated on a daily basis. What they do in that scenario is they actually take those ideas in that automation pipeline. They show those reports in board meetings. So the board actually gets to review what ideas are coming from the business, and the board members actually get to vote on what they believe will have the biggest impact in the business. Really great story from people in the organization all the way up to board. That company is doing some amazing things with RPA. They actually do RPA and digital process automation as well. But yeah, some really great things inside there. Okay, maybe one more question here. If I haven't got to your question, I apologize. Last question for today is, can you customize the questions that you actually get asked or ask your end users inside Automation Hub? The answer to that is yes, you can customize those questions. At this stage, if you add any additional questions, they don't get taken into account on those ROI estimates and counts, but I know that's a feature that's being requested, and being on the UiPath Insider program, I know that that is coming pretty soon. So that's another great one. All right, I think that is it for today. I really appreciate your time. I hope you found this session both interesting and useful. And what we're going to do is just end off with, if you haven't yet joined our Automation Alliance, I highly encourage you to do that. Automation Alliance is just one of our community initiatives where we get together customers, friends, technology partners, and solution providers from around the world to share ideas, have discussions, and learn together about all things intelligent process automation. If you haven't joined that, click on automationalliance.com. You get redirected to a LinkedIn group. Please request to join that. That'll add you into that community. And another thing for people that haven't actually heard our podcast yet, again, this is a podcast that we create as part of that community initiative. It's for process automation enthusiasts, and it connects our listeners with automation gurus across the globe that share their insights and knowledge around all things digital process automation, robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, and more. It's been amazingly successful. Lots of great comments on that. It's designed so you can listen to it on the bus or in the train or on the way to work, 15 to half an hour episodes. One just landed today about some great things that are happening in the InsurTech space. I encourage you to go listen to that and listen to some of the great things on there. All right, I think that's it for today. I really appreciate your time. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to drop me an email at sean@rapidMATION.com. But for those of you who I've not chatted to before, looking forward to getting you started on your intelligent automation journey. And for some of those that we're working with already, looking forward to carrying on that great relationship. So thanks again for your time today, and we look forward to speaking to you soon. See ya.